is a terrible idea. I said I would give myself more time before listening to 600 Strike, because everyone is convinced I will burn my apartment down, or pop a blood vessel, like have an aneurysm, a stroke, reconcuss myself, like the list of things I am apparently bound to do to myself in the wake of this song. It's pretty lengthy, admittedly mildly concerning, but also very amusing, I'm not gonna lie. While I take, you know, things that I've studied, things I talk about reasonably seriously, I don't take myself all that seriously. I frequently laugh at myself, am willing to joke around. So all of those comments obviously crack me the fuck up because it's just funny, and I get it. But we are here at 600 Strike. We'll say I have my emotional support shawl to like pull on because it's very stretchy, in case you can't tell, and just be like, nope, this is how I will retreat into myself, and Peg is just off screen here to provide snorts. But we are here at 600 Strike, the final song in the Vengeance Saga, which has been a journey, an odyssey, if you will. Look, I've obviously been pretty noticeably, even more, it would probably seem, critical of Wisdom and Vengeance Saga. I at least do want to say that part of that is it felt like whiplash. I sort of felt like I got blindsided to a completely different style of writing from what I was getting from Troy Saga through Thunder Saga. Again, I could nitpick in those, I could say like, I don't know if I agree with that, and I could be critical of some things, but it was never a commentary saying I thought the writing quality suffered. I acknowledged, like, it's a concept album, it's in a, would be considered kind of a draft-ish of type stage in the world of musical theater, usually. And will at that point often go through edits, and you never really know how significant they're gonna be. I mean, again, depends on the creator. They can go through major and significant edits from a concept album to like a, we'll call it like Broadway official album, if we will. Or they can get only really minor edits. And I think most of the edits I asked for, especially in Act 1, as I stated in the last video, were like lyric tweaks, punching up of some characters. I thought pilotes need to be a little more established. That's just me. Again, this is all my opinion. Take all of it with many grains of salt. But not too many, don't dehydrate yourself. Stay hydrated, kids. However, Wisdom Saga just for me, felt like an about face. Like, I suddenly got blindsided and I was like, huh? I mean, that is definitely part of why my reaction was so strong. I was just very flabbergasted because it just felt like all of a sudden it was hyper-reliance on tropes without the nuance that had been added in previous sagas. And it shook me. It really left me sitting there in like 404 error mode, mad.exe has stopped working, deep confusion. All of this explanation basically coming in to say that I am stalling. Yeah, I'm stalling. I have look, people have warned me since my goodbye that this was the song that would completely destroy me, and to please survive this song to get to the Ithaca saga, which we all know. I've been sitting here saying slaughter of the suitors, slaughter of the suitors. That is the climax of the story. That is the catharsis where we want it, precious. I want it so bad. Let's just rip the band-aid off and get to 600 Strike. Help me, I'm scared. I need an adult. Oh god, I am an adult. Now I need an older adult. Now, while many people talk about me in the animatics, I've made it clear I'm not doing the animatics for this go-round, and that I plan on watching them afterwards. So then I can focus more on the visuals than trying to focus on the lyrics and the text. I was warned that this would be one that I truly wouldn't understand. And so that it would be good to have the libretto up, which, again, shout out Mary Thickness, legend that you are. Mary transcribed this libretto from, I guess, the official live stream that Jorge did for the final saga, so it's got the form of stage notes or whatever he would have put in there that were meant to be really important, and that way I can have it without getting distracted by any form of animatics and visuals. And so I've got this, and I'm assuming we've now got to figure out how to get Odysseus out of the situation of Poseidon just potentially killed you, because obviously we can't do that. It's Odysseus. Oh no, I forgot. The windbag. I know that theme. Yeah, that's the windbag. Okay. Seeing the windbag within arm's reach, Odysseus grabs for it within arm's reach. Where did it go? Was he not, like, wearing it? Okay, whatever. Tying it to his back. No, Jorge, no. It's a jetpack. Really? No, Jorge, no. I'm not mad. I am supremely disappointed. Yo, you could have just made it a buoy that floated him home, and you'd have gotten across the point that Poseidon is just forever mad. Oh my god, no. No. Actual question. Why are we repeating the 600 men? This is a genuine question I have. Obviously, Poseidon killed most of them. Not all 600. He killed most of them. He killed, 550 of them. Which obviously does not rhyme as well as 600, so I kind of get that. Why bring that back, though? Like, it's just a genuine question. Why bring it back? Because at this point, this is very much not about them anymore. Or is it? I don't know. I have confusion.
I don't think you seem to get it. I can't afford to die, 'cause I will get back to my son, and I will get back to my wife!
Oh no.
There have been many points where I've said, look, just CF my goodbye, and how you absolutely do not talk to the gods this way. The oh no is not even for that. At this point, I think I've gone ad nauseum on that topic, and people will probably meme it to hell and back at this point. It's like they've built this to be the final big conflict. No, this is like running the risk. This phrase is illustrative but necessary. We're blowing our load too early. We're blowing the emotional, climactic, cathartic load too early, because that's not where this is. And again, yes, this is obviously very different from what happens in the Odyssey. Again, Poseidon shows up and Odysseus escapes with it completely buck naked with his magic shawl. Then we take him to the Phaeacians, he gets clothes, cleaned up, tells his whole story, and then skedaddles on off back to Ithaca. Again, totally understand we cut the Phaeacians out. We don't need them there. They're mostly there so Odysseus can tell his story, because at the point in the Odyssey, we haven't heard of any of his adventures yet. Like, that's still very much a big question mark in the dark. We just know he's been stuck on Calypso and what little stuff we get in the intro of the Odyssey. And I did note that Act 1, you deliberately bring in Poseidon as an active player to interact with Odysseus. Massive change from the Odyssey. I loved it. Obviously, Ruthlessness, top tier song. Still my favorite, not gonna lie. That you have to bring him back. We brought him back and Get in the Water. And while I blink in utter confusion at Odysseus's entire singing portion in that, where he sings back at Poseidon, honestly, I think it serves a similar purpose to the Odyssey. I think it's great in bringing him back, in reinforcing that the gods are ultimately that much more powerful than humanity, that this is an anger that will never die, that ultimately violence is going to beget violence and blood feuds are going to continue on and ricochet on. Now, important to note in the Odyssey, Telemachus and even Athena, because at this point we're in the bit where Telemachus ventures off to meet some other Greek kings, and Athena is with him in disguise as this character of Mentor, who we had already met. And trust me, the suitors note that. It's a really funny moment back on Ithaca where the suitors are like, yeah, he sailed away with Mentor, but then I saw Mentor just an hour ago, and it's super weird. Like, we'll give the suitors that one moment of noticing things. Good for them. But when they meet King Nestor on his kingdom of Pylos, they're actually doing massive sacrifices to Poseidon. It's a whole almost mini festival moment for Poseidon. And Athena, while in disguise, participates as part of the rites and says, may Poseidon offer protection, all this, and Telemachus does so as well. So it's pretty clear that the blood feud is ultimately meant to end with Odysseus. Now, in Get in the Water, we have Poseidon deliberately threatening Telemachus and Penelope. And given that we're not doing really any of Telemachus's journey, I think it opens you up to having that moment, because we're not seeing Telemachus, give the sacrifices, or Athena being with him to give these sacrifices, these ways to try to be like, let's at least keep it in the one generation, if you will. Let's not have a massive ricocheting blood feud like the House of Atreus.
It's always the House of Atreus.
I think Get in the Water was just fine. Again, I didn't love any of Odysseus' responses, mostly because I blinked at it in confusion, because I wasn't entirely sure what I was supposed to be taking from that. But, like, leaving him drowning, having him, like, the consciousness is going out, and you have the voices of people who we know have died or have even watched died go through his mind. It's a beautiful moment, I think. This is about to ruin that moment for me, isn't it? Because I was just like, look, if we're gonna keep the windbag, it's a bunch of air. It's gonna float him to the top, sure, like a buoy. And just, he makes his way home, somehow lives, and Poseidon's already pieced out because he's like, I'm done here, I'm out. That to me makes so much sense. And just get us to Ithaca. If you want, bury the lead yet again. Which has happened several times in ways that I don't like. But that's a moment again where I'm actually advocating for burying the lead yet again as Odysseus died. Instead of making our plot hole windbag a jetpack, what is he gonna do with it? All I gotta do is open this bag, skedaddle back to Ithaca? Like, what is why? And I swear to God, if someone comes at me and says the rule of cool, I feel like Will Turner in Parts of the Caribbean.
That's not good enough!
Rule of cool works so long as the writing is supporting it and it's still working with the story and what's happening here. That's not good enough. What is the reason? What is the reason? I don't want to sit through a jetpack. It's a jetpack! It's a jetpack! Look, this is not The Martian where Matt Damon decides to Iron Man it. That's funny and makes sense in the context of that story. This makes no sense. Why would he even think to do it this way? There's no concept in his head for this working like that. Jet propulsion technology, not around in any respect. The closest you get would be wings on sandals. Like, what makes him think this way? Okay, alright. Is he just flying around? Sorry, you're getting me pausing a lot because I need to go and check this document. Uses the windbag jetpack to evade Poseidon's long-ranged attacks, getting in close for the advantage. Here's a big question. Why is Poseidon even still here? For all he knows, he's already killed Odysseus, he would move on. He has no reason to stay and wait while we're in that moment of Odysseus seemingly dead under the seas. So I do want to point that out. I don't know why Poseidon was still hanging around. He had no reason to. He should have just slipped back and left. At which point, it would have been hilarious if Odysseus, jet-packed up and went, oh shit, he's gone. What the fuck? I can't believe we're doing this. This is not Attack on Titan. This is giving very Attack on Titan. And look, Attack on Titan works for what Attack on Titan is. This is not Attack on Titan. And I understand. Okay, we have to do this again. We have to do a major pause to yap. Because this is something I actually have wanted to say. I understand that Jorge has taken a lot of inspiration, according to the comments, from video games and anime. I think using that to excuse potentially weak writing does a disservice to those mediums. Now look, I don't really play video games. They're not really my thing. That's just personal taste. I have friends who love them. My younger brother likes video games. I have an ex who played video games, and I would sort of sit and try to watch with him, but they tend to make me motion sick. But I can appreciate that there's incredible storytelling that goes on there. I've half watched, listened to people play through games that I've heard have had great story. I read Wikipedias when I hear it's a great story, and it can absolutely then be adapted and translated into different mediums. A good example would be something like the show The Last of Us, which has been doing, I would say, probably extremely well over on HBO/Max as a television series adaptation of a video game. But for anime, I'm old. I've been watching anime since the 90s. There is some incredible storytelling that goes on in anime. And anime, let's not forget, is not a genre, it's a medium. Now within that medium, there are genres. And some of those genres have narrative, you could say tropes or quirks to them that are unique to those genres, even within that medium. But saying that it's anime inspired to try and make sense of something that might not work or might just not be necessarily fabulous writing, I will say, especially in comparison to all the other writing that has been going on in other sagas of this musical. Like, look, again, I've had my disagreements, but I never said I thought the writing was bad. Kind of until we hit Wisdom Saga. Then I really just looked at the writing and was confused because the characters lost all their nuance. And anybody coming saying, well, it's anime, it's video game. I'm like, that does a disservice to those mediums because you're essentially implying that those mediums only rely on tropes and don't have nuance. And I don't think that's fair to those mediums. There's some incredible storytelling that goes on in anime, like so many you can't even list them, and there's some incredible storytelling that goes on in video games. Even if that's not a mode of storytelling that I personally enjoy, I can appreciate the storytelling that goes on there. Like, look, your girl once sat and read through the entire, like, lore and history of Final Fantasy VII because I got so interested in the story and the world and how it was interacting just from, like, fan videos on the internet. And I was like, I'm never gonna play this. Video games are not my thing, but I really want to know the story of the characters. So yeah, there's incredible storytelling that goes on there. Now, often it is designed in such a way to fit that medium. I do think that then makes Jorge's already difficult job of taking the Odyssey and trying to make a musical out of it even harder when he then says, I want to take influences from other mediums and transpose them onto yet another medium. So we're going from medium to a medium to another medium within it. Like, oh my gosh, he makes his job so much harder. Again, I commend him for that because I would be too scared. But this song, and what I'm reading in the libretto, what I'm hearing in the music, self-indulgent is the word that comes to mind. And self-indulgent in the writing to the point that, again, because I don't know the full history of how this musical was conceived, where he started writing, where he ended writing, like how many rounds of edits went where, what got more attention than what, it just seems really odd. Because you can argue that something like, say, God Games is self-indulgent. And even as I said, I was like, I'll let him cook. I'll listen. And honestly, God Games, I get it. I don't like all the choices that are in it. I think the ending should be changed and you could still have it work and it would still be really fun, but I think actually even make it more fun because you add complexity and depth to the character of Zeus and even to Athena by highlighting their relationship. This is self-indulgent with no real nuance to it because it's like we're just having the moment for it to be cool, and you can only do that so many times, and it feels like he's done it in places reasonably often, and I'm just... Also, a moment of Odysseus fighting a god. This would suit Diomedes more than it would Odysseus. Now, Diomedes, he was name-dropped back in the Troy Saga. He is another Greek hero, but he actually fights gods on the battlefield in the Iliad. Notably, he causes a wound to Aphrodite while she's getting her son Aeneas out, and he does cause a wound to Ares. Not unusual. Ares gets wounded all the time, and then he screams about it. Like, very literally, he screams. And that's in the melee of combat, like armies fighting each other. The likelihood of seeing a one-on-one duel between a person and a god that's not in the context of warfare. And again, let's also note the Trojan War was so unique, even in if we call like mythology the history of the mythology, if we will. It was so unique an event. I mean, it's essentially the downfall of these heroes, of the mythological heroes in the tree. Like, this is basically the end. A lot of scholars have speculated it's touching on what was known as the downfall of kind of Bronze Age Greece and that civilization. And because we don't have that much for Bronze Age Greece, a lot of that is kind of lost. There does seem to be some kind of downfall, which leads you into the classical age or era of Greece, which will then also continue on to stuff like the Hellenistic era, which is where you get Alexander the Great. I'm not a historian, so I'm going through this pretty quickly. To say that this is why the song. Sorry, I'm babbling because I know that my critiques and my criticisms can upset people. I'm fully aware of this. I've worked in the creative industry for over a decade. I have gotten feedback that has ranged from super nice to positively scathing, made me want to go cry in a closet. Trust me, I know how much it sucks. So I don't say any of this lightly, even when I get heated. Do I go a little overboard when I get heated? Probably, sure. I'll own that. But I've been so warned about this song, and I was honestly really ready for it to surprise me, because I thought Get in the Water, with the exception of Odysseus' responses, was like a banger. Fucking banger. I loved it. And again, that's something that doesn't happen at all in the Odyssey, but I loved it. But if it's leading to this, I'm sad.
For every comrade, every one of my friends, almost all of whom were slaughtered by your hand.
Wow, we flipped around from maybe you could learn to forgive. It's all about your son to, yeah, so all of my friends that you heard, I'm mad about it. It's been 10 years. I'm still mad. Like, yo, why? Odysseus really said, hey, let's not. And then, you know what? I'll just match energy for energy. And there's whiplash. But also, what?
600 strike!
Huh? Okay, Mary, you're really doing the heavy lifting here with your libretto, because Huh? What is 600 strike? Odysseus does a flurry of blows on Poseidon, dodging any attempts at attacking him and overwhelmed by sheer quantity of attacks. How? Why?
How?
Because here's the thing. You open a bag and put it on your back. How are you directing that? You have no ability to direct wind that is coming out of the bag. And if we're going to say that magically, apparently we have the storm of Poseidon that should already be gone back, you can't direct it. Let's even continue that is Poseidon's storm, and he should be able to control the wind that's in that bag. There are questions, Jorge. Questions. This does not work. And this is not even me complaining about mythology. This just does not work.
This does not work.
600 strike, what? Poseidon falls, landing on a nearby sea stack. His trident falls out of his grip, laying a few paces away. Despite his superficial wounds, he is smirking. Well, at least we're acknowledging the wounds are fucking superficial. Like, he's not gonna care. He's a fly. He's like a gnat. How is this gonna hurt him? So what, Poseidon's just, here, imagine this. He's just lying on a stack like, fucking hilarious, brah. You're so funny. What are we doing? And he should be smirking. Frankly, this should be fucking hilarious to him. While I'm sitting here befuddled and flabbergasted.
You idiot.
Someone said it.
Can't you see? You sealed your fate just to beat me. You released my storm when you opened that bag.
Let's also once again say, yeah, you released that storm. How were you directing yourself to be able to jetpack it? How? Odysseus. Jorge. How? No, you need to explain to me the how. I'm sorry, if you're gonna do this, I want explanations on the how. I will be that asshole who wants to know how. So we are saying that this is Poseidon's storm that we'd already used and dissipated. In ruthlessness. That's apparently just back and in the wind bag. And we've released it again. And it is true that they did say, don't open this thing. Just why I advocated for you want to keep that, fine. We'll keep the plot hole bag. Use it as a buoy to just float home. And have Poseidon think he's dead. Like, have him see this, like, basically limp, borderline lifeless body floating back, and, like, if you want him to stay and watch to make sure, he'll be like, that dude's fucked, and just move on. And then he thinks he's won, which, whether or not he has, it's like, the point is that this is just violence perpetuating violence. What is the reasoning for doing this with Odysseus? Because, again, are we trying to show that he is esoterically ruthless? And I'd said this before, that I don't think Odysseus has really been that ruthless, as opposed to having been reckless. I think he's been wildly reckless in many places, and this is reckless as fuck.
Seriously?
And also, I just think it's silly. I'm sorry, it's silly. Again, I like anime as much as the next person. This is silly. And the reason is that even the bigger moments of, we'll call them more anime-inspired stuff, like if we have god games and like, that makes sense, that's gods dealing with gods, right? Reasonably level playing field here. This is just silly. It feels like Jorge just wanted an Attack on Titan moment, but it doesn't fit. This is so jarringly out of bounds of the narrative. And not even just the Odyssey, of what's been going on in Epic. We've never had Odysseus physically act this way. Like, as much as, again, I disagree with how Athena has been treated in this narrative and how Odysseus especially has interacted with her, he has reacted very specifically to Poseidon, to Zeus, and to Hermes. And this just breaks all those rules. Like, your narrative has set rules. Why are you breaking them in this way? And, like, you're right near the finish line, and you're blowing your load really early. Again, I hate that phrase, but, like, it's the only one I can think of. I know, it's very illustrative. I'm so sorry. Because Poseidon isn't your big bad. Like, he's your ultimate mythological antagonist in this case, but he's not what we're driving towards. We're driving towards the slaughter of the suitors. That is our end game here. And this is such a distraction from that. And I think it does a disservice to the great bop that is Get in the Water. Like, it does a disservice to all the great shit that went on there to just do this. But alright, I don't know. Will Poseidon salvage this for me somehow? Because again, also, my forever love to the voice actor for Poseidon. Steven, is that his name? Steven Rodriguez? Forever love. Like, and also, honestly, forever love to Jorge for casting him. As I said back in Ruthless, it's a unique voice. It's not one you would think of to use, but that there was a vision. He saw it, he executed. Voice-wise, there's a vision, and I love this vision.
Back to your one-way home.
Hermes did say.
Now you'll never get back.
Oh, the growl.
You're going to call off that storm.
Excuse me?
Or what? You can't kill me.
I wouldn't even respond that way. I'd be like, excuse?
Exactly.
Oh, no. No. Yeah, we're pausing. Sorry. Again, these are all very short bursts I'm having to do this in. Did he just pick up the trident? Because we're going to have a discussion if he just touched the trident. Stalking towards Poseidon, a menacing look in his eye. Again, Poseidon should be laughing his ass off at him. Odysseus picks... Oh, God, he picks up Poseidon. Okay. We have to talk about the trident. It's actually kind of a very nerdy but slightly interesting topic, and one that I have investigated before. Let's talk about magical objects. Because I was talking about how we've got things like the wind bag and this magic sash/shawl he's supposed to get. Here we go. We are in honor of the magic sash. I'm keeping my clothes on. Nobody get weird. We're not making this weird. Did I just make it weird? Sorry, I just made it weird. There are magical objects, if you will, in Greek mythos. However, magical objects that belong to gods, like Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident, they belong to that god and can only be used by that god. Other people don't get to wield the thunderbolt. Other people do not get to wield the trident. And this actually includes other gods. Other gods do not get to use the thunderbolt. They don't get to use the trident. Some exceptions can be made, and this is mostly like these sort of divine weapons, I think is more what I'm aiming at, because things like, again, I've noted that Zeus has the Aegis, which is his shield, and which he basically gives to Athena. Okay, but that's not his thunderbolt, his main weapon. Another instance is that Hades sometimes does seem to lend out what is known as his cap of invisibility, which is sort of his magical object, if you will, that he has, mostly to Hermes, because Hermes functions as a psychopomp, which is essentially he takes the souls of those who've departed, leads them to the edge of the river of the underworld, drops them off, and says, okay, on your own, off I go. So he usually utilizes that particular object for that. But when it comes again to divine weapons or objects of supreme power, they can only be used by their god in question. Now, I could potentially try to speak on other mythos, maybe think of things like Thor's hammer, but I'm not familiar enough with those mythologies to know if this really is such a universal thing. But what little scholarship I sort of breezed through on that topic, and I'll get to why I'm talking on this in a second, seemed to make a point that a lot of these objects were predominantly only used by the god in question. Mortals especially were not able to use them. Odysseus should not be able to even touch the trident. It's too powerful an object for him. Similarly, in how the gods do not show up in their full, totally divine godly glory, at the risk of just humans going poof. Rip Semele, the mother of Dionysus, that is how she went poof. Zeus showed his full form. However, there was a major shift that happened in this idea of potentially divine objects and their use by humans, and it actually goes predominantly to a set of operas known as the Ring of the Nibelung. Now, the Ring of the Nibelung is a cycle of 4 operas by Wagner, and you've absolutely probably heard some of the music before if you look up the song Ride of the Valkyries. If anybody's ever seen Apocalypse Now, you've heard it. Or if you're also familiar with What's Opera Doc by the Looney Tunes, they riffed on Wagner's Ring Cycle. Now, the Ring Cycle speaks of a golden ring that is made from the Rhine gold. And the thing about this one ring is that Anybody can wield it. It offers great power, but it also corrupts the one who uses it. And if you're getting flashbacks to Tolkien, yes, Tolkien took great inspiration from this. Now, let's also be fair, Wagner took inspiration from two primary sources, which are the Nibelungenlied and the Volsung Saga, neither of which I've read, so I can't speak to them. And I do believe that Tolkien also took inspiration from those. But the aspect of this great, powerful object, this one ring, which can only be destroyed by being brought back to the place from whence it was made, and really the fact that it can be worn and utilized by anyone, was unique to Wagner. It was something that was a new idea. Because before then, again, if we talk about the Greek mythos specifically, you get stuff like Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident. These things are not utilized, not only not by other gods, but not by mortals. Mortals can't. It is part of the massive divide that exists between divinity and humanity. So Odysseus absolutely would not be able to touch the trident. He can't. Like, he just can't. It's some kind of physical impossibility. Maybe the power would overwhelm him and kill him. Maybe he, literally can't touch it. It just wouldn't happen in the mythos. And I guess if I was already upset about the windbag, this is what maybe people thought was going to throw me over the edge. There's also the fact that it seems, it's kind of vague in how it's written. It seems like the gods sort of, in a way, summon their objects. Poseidon could just be like, "Nyeh," and the trident's back in his hand. What have we done? What have we done? Anywho, I wanted to do the little spiel on the magical optic thing because it's something I've investigated before when I was once looking at the comparisons between the Ring Cycle operas and Lord of the Rings. So it was like a completely different topic that led me down that daisy chain going, oh, that's actually really interesting, and some scholarship on the topic that was, again, very fascinating. This was years ago now that I did that. But need to talk about that since apparently we've decided Odysseus is picking up the trident. What are we doing? This isn't necessary. That's another thing. This whole encounter is unnecessary. Get in the water was great. It achieved whatever goal we needed of bringing back Poseidon to deal with Odysseus. This entire encounter is unnecessary and wastes time in the narrative. Get him to freaking Ithaca. We're right there. That is where we should be turning our focus. Although I have been concerned with how we've treated Ithaca in the past, though people have told me Ithaca Saga is going to, put years back on my life, cleanse my pores, and just give me happiness. This entire song is similarly to most of Charybdis. This is a waste of time in the narrative that could be better utilized elsewhere to enhance your story. This doesn't tell me anything about Odysseus's character. It doesn't tell me anything about Poseidon. It's just here to be here and be a really self-indulgent moment of the rule of cool that makes no sense. And again, I feel like I'm being blindsided by the writing in this musical. It's so jarring to me. So jarring. And not because it's different, but because it's just on a different standard compared to the level of writing that the rest of again, Troy Through Thunder was. Troy Saga Through Thunder Saga, again, any, disagreements I could have with creative choices, the writing was tight. And again, the music is always great. I've literally had, no complaints really on the music or the singers. They've all been fabulous. It's pretty clear Jorge's strength is as a composer and also an ability to cast voices. Honestly, there have been inspired choices on the voice casting that I never would have thought to do this, and it truly takes a special kind of creative to be able to hear those voices and go, that. Again, there is immense talent, wisdom, and vengeance, and moments like this, that level of talent that has been presented, and again, as much as this is a concept album stage, it makes moments like this really stick out like a sore thumb. And it's unfortunate because these are not things I want to be distracted by. I want to be sitting there and getting in the nitty-gritty of the myth and going, oh, that's different. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's different. This is just what are we doing? This is a different level of, huh?
Emotional support shall help me.
Wait. How does it feel to be helpless? How does it feel to know pain? I watched my friends die in horror, crying as they were all slain.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but the fact I've got melodic screaming I'm so taken out. the ha. Honestly, Poseidon should be laughing his ass off. This is exactly what Poseidon wanted. If I guess, if I were to roll with this, am I supposed to be saying this is Poseidon getting what he deserved? Because I don't think he deserves this. But I'm sorry, yeah, I shouldn't be laughing. It's a beautiful note. And again, the fact that Steven can sing like that he's got a voice that does that, I have mad respect, because my throat would be destroyed. I have massive respect for people who sing with that level of rasp and growl and grit. And as much as, again, this melody is beautiful, and the counterpoint is so nice, the da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, and then having the ha, like, there's nice music, but I am so taken out by the lyrics. It's like, because people say I don't appreciate the music enough, and it's like, I feel like I repeat myself saying that the music is always great. It is! Musically great. This is silly.
I heard their final moments, calling their captain in vain. Look what you turned me into. Look what we've become.
I'm sorry, I should laugh.
All of the pain that I've been through, haven't I suffered enough?
Haven't I suffered enough? When will you take responsibility for your actions, Odysseus? Look, Calypso aside. Calypso is the big, that is not your fault moment. Everything else has been consequences of your dumbass actions. So where the fuck do you get off? Where is the Odyssey? The audacity of the Odysseus coming from? This is on a level that is mind-boggling to me. The fact that I'm still doing this in song should tell you that I am, like, mildly broken. And the fact that I'm frankly laughing tells you how taken out I am. Like, any suspension of disbelief has been shattered. I can't. This is so ridiculous.
I just can't.
Didn't stop when I begged you. Told me to close my heart. You said the world was dark. Didn't you say that ruthlessness is mercy upon our... All right. Please.
The fuck did... Oh no. I did not just hear an Olympian say please to a mortal. Or hey, go sit in mythological timeout. How dare you? No. And I'm mad. Puns intended, because I know you all want to make puns. Go ahead, make them in the comments. I want to see all the puns. The puns are highly encouraged, really, by this point. The counterpoint is nice. The voices, the music here, it's just the content. I throw my hands up at this point. The fact that I'm laughing at it tells you how taken out I've been by this song, which again just makes me sad for Get in the Water, because that's such a great song. It's so good. It did not deserve this to happen on the heels of it. But also, why is Poseidon just taking this? Like, I have a lot of questions of the whys, because it just kind of doesn't make sense. Okay, moving on. I think I'll try not to repeat myself. I know I do, and I am sorry, like... Oh, thank God it's over.
After everything you've done, how will you sleep at night?
Just fine. Next to Penelope.
Next to my wife.
Why would Poseidon even ask that question? Unless it were to be more mocking. Look, if I'm going to have to sit through the absolute, absurd silliness that is 600 Strike, like if we are apparently gonna keep it, and I wish we wouldn't in the story, but you know what? If apparently it ends up that we are married to keeping 600 Strike, I want Poseidon to be far more mocking. Frankly, I don't want him screaming. I want him laughing his ass off sitting on that rock going, this is everything I've wanted. Look at the monster you are. You've always been this. And again, I just say Odysseus hasn't changed. He's gotten more reckless at points, but other than that, nothing has changed. And I do think the musical has blown its load early. Again, I'm sorry I keep using that phrase. We've peaked too early in the narrative. This is not where the big emotional catharsis and peak should be. And that's what this song, especially that back half, feels like it's supposed to be. And it makes me sad. Like, it saddens me because it's like, oh, we were driving towards this. All of that work that was done in the Troy saga through the Thunder saga. And Sure, I'll include the Wisdom Saga, even though I obviously have probably the most problems out of any of the sagas with that saga specifically. While noting that is the Telemachus Problems saga, and I'm telling you, the Telemachus Problem, it's the hardest part of adapting the Odyssey, point blank period, in any format, fashion, or form. And let's not mistake ourselves, this is an adaptation of the Odyssey. Now, I guess I need to make something else clear, because everybody says it's not an adaptation, it's a reinterpretation, it's a reimagining, it's, all of these things. Adaptation is an umbrella term. Okay, when you study this, it's an umbrella term. Reimaginings, retellings, reinterpretations, all that, they are under the umbrella term of adaptation. So I say adaptation because that's the general parent umbrella term. Are there different types of adaptations? Yes. Yes, there are. This is still an adaptation. And I also think it's a problem when we keep, with again, some minor differences, pretty much beat for beat, the Odyssey, until we hit Wisdom Saga, where suddenly we just go off the rails, and it leaves anybody who's watching it, reading it, listening to it, it is jarring. Is part of why my reaction to the Wisdom Saga was so strong. It was so jarring. It literally just took me out. Hell, maybe I should have been concussed for that saga. Then I could have been totally monotone and it wouldn't have seemed that bad. I am befuddled. I am flabbergasted at the choices in this saga. And Wisdom and this, although Wisdom I think has better bones in that I think there's a way to do Legendary, which I think a lot of the problems I have with Legendary could be solved by making that kind of a montage song. Start him at 13 and then push, right where Thunder Saga ends and then push through and make it very clear that we then hit him when he's 20. We can see that process and get that process through the music. And it also then gives the vocalist a chance to show off because they do different type of singing for a younger character and then he's matured to 20 and he gets to sing in a different way. And I think Little Wolf, somebody had suggested this in a conversation where the idea of Little Wolf is you can keep the fight music and all that, but have them actually trading wars of words and have it the fight more like a metaphor than a literal physical fight. The problem with Telemachus and the way that Telemachus was done in the Wisdom Saga is that all of his character development, which should have technically already started in Wisdom Saga and we didn't really get any, is going to have to happen entirely off stage. Because we're going to go into Ithaca Saga, and there's no way we're following Telemachus around for Ithaca Saga. There's just no way. I can predict that pretty easily. There's no way. So all of his important character development is going to be happening off screen, which does beg the question, why did you even bother to introduce the character? If you're not going to bother to bring that character development and do right by a character that you're putting in your musical, why bother putting them in? I also then think you do a little better by the suitors as antagonists by saying, okay, yeah, they're physically intimidating, but they've also got a bit of cunning in there. That makes them, even more intimidating, and it's part of what makes them, you could say, esoterically scary in the Odyssey, is the fact that, okay, look, they have their moments where they're not that dumb, and they absolutely drive you up the wall, because they know exactly what they're doing. So I think there are bones in Wisdom Saga, and I think Will Be Fine should be changed into something more like You'll Be Fine, and it should be Athena singing to Telemachus about setting him off on his journey, so that we understand, okay, fine, if you're gonna have to do all the development off screen, at least give us a sign that it's gonna be happening. Vengeance is a lot rougher on a writing level, I think, than Wisdom, because there's more stuff in here that is, on an objective level, filler. Charybdis is predominantly filler. This entire song is filler. Because it serves no purpose and it adds nothing new. And when so many of the songs have been very narrative driven, even the moments of what we'll call them a more traditional operatic style like aria, so in opera there's two types of songs. You have recitative and you have aria. Recitative is dialogue, and it's essentially story. Push the story forward. Then you get arias. Arias are solo songs. It is sitting here in our feelings. The plot doesn't really move along, but it's sit in our feelings, and it's a good show-off point for the singers, and we love it. So the few moments we get of what we could call arias are still pretty plot-driven. I think of stuff like Monster. It's still reasonably plot-driven. It's, our Jean Valjean moment. It is meant to be the big turnaround. Although, again, my massive argument is that Odysseus has not changed at all. He is still ultimately the same person. And I think, and I'm still sometimes left a little turned around, if you will, on where exactly the musical is trying to stand on Odysseus and development. Is he supposed to be taking a downward spiral? Is he supposed to be developing? Am I meant to see whether or not he's developing? Again, I think the musical could be just like slightly more clear and firm on its stance, because I think it's left to a lot of interpretation, and not to say that's bad, but I think it's kind of a detriment to the character if the musical itself doesn't make itself a little more clear on where it stands on Odysseus as a character and what kind of journey he's on internally, if any. It just feels a little muddled. Again, my opinion. But wow, Vengeance is rough. Just comparative to the other sagas, Vengeance and Wisdom are really rough. They feel it. They just feel less polished. They feel a little more self-indulgent and have more moments of just what are we doing? What has happened? And it's just odd. It's just odd. No, we're at the point where no thoughts head empty. My brain is like a 404 error message at this point. I am out of things I could possibly say. And I probably didn't even articulate myself all that well. I am just left baffled. Utterly and completely